Hi all. I thought I should actually go over that Kasparov versus Rest of the World match. So it was in 1999. I'm going to use Wiki as my kind of notes, so I'll be sort of reading a bit from Wiki at the same time as stepping through the game. So Kasparov playing white. So the Rest of the World in consultation, and statistically I think it was over 50,000 individuals from more than 75 countries playing with the black pieces. So the host was the MSN Gaming Zone, sponsorship from the First USA Bank. So some people think it's like the greatest game in the history of chess. In terms of evolution of chess style series, actually, I suppose it can be like a different style of playing completely, where a group is up against the individual and they're trying to vote their moves in, and the highest voted move gets played. But in this game, there was a team of panelists for the world team in order of strength. So the up and coming rising juniors. So the team of panelists before young stars. So according to Wiki, and so I believe this is right, Etienne Bacrot, Florian Felican, Irina Krush from the USA, and Elizabeth Patz. Also Daniel King was recruited to provide a running commentary, and so he was often like the fifth advocate as well, so presenting some initial analysis before the world decided what they'd vote. So the first move was played on June 21st, so E4 was played, 1999, June 21st, and the team voted for the fun Sicilian defence. So we saw now knight f3, and now d6, and Kasparov, instead of playing the usual d4, actually deviated with bishop b5 check. So maybe he'd wanted to get the team out of the mainline book theory with this move. So Wiki comments, it's a surprise many spectators. Of course it did. More of a closed game, more of a strategic emphasis. In terms of strategic emphasis, maybe White's often playing for a strategic Maroczy bind later after exchanging light square bishops, so he's not left with this potentially bad bishop behind these two pawns. The team offered the exchange of light squared bishops with bishop d7. After the takes, queen takes, now the Maroczy bind. So was the team going to be faced with a very difficult and cramped position over many days, weeks and months? Well, actually, as it turned out, the team kind of played very dynamically. After knight c6, knight c3, the team played knight f6. Straightforward so far, just developing both knights. Now after castles, the team played g6. So that seems like a nice move as well, because White's a bit weaker on the dark squares, so targeting these dark squares seems kind of logical, I'll try and stop saying because actually I'll say anything instead of It bores me to watch my own videos when I say all the time, so I'm going to try and stop doing that. So c takes d4. So Kasparov, he released that bind that black's got on d4 by playing d4 immediately. Knight takes now bishop g7 rather, knight de2. So what do we think of this position? Kasparov's still got a kind of bind on d5, but he's got control of d4. Black's not going to be able to entrench a piece very easily or control that square as easily now. Potentially also d6 is sitting on this semi-open d file. So Kasparov's got a bit of positional pressure, and he's trying to minimise the downside on the dark squares. So queen e6 though, so maybe this was an annoying move for Kasparov, immediately wanting a fight, not letting White just play casually. So apparently this move was a novelty, so it's never been played before in a recorded game. Irina Krush discovered it. She's doing very well nowadays, by the way. She did very well in the US Chess Championships. She's beating lots of IMs and GMs. So at the time she was a young promising junior, and so apparently she analysed the move and enlisted Payet's, I dare I say it, Patz. It sounds like Patz, Elizabeth Patz, but Payet's, I don't know how to pronounce it. Someone please tell me, how do you pronounce Paehtz? Should we just call her Patz from now on? So she recommended it as well. So Krush and Patz recommended both this move, and so much of the discussion, after much discussion, it got 53% of the vote apparently, So we played Queen E6 as a team. So it's offering immediately an exchange sacrifice. So, but this has been calculated very deeply. So sometimes, like in my 5-minute games, the exchange sacks are obviously they lead to zero compensation. I just have a lost position and lost game. Here though, it's been calculated quite well. Knight D5 and black taking on E4, so allowing white to play Knight C7 check. Apparently, according to Rybka at depth 11-12, this is already slightly better for black. Black's at least equalised. So King D7, Kasparov took. Now instead of taking the knight immediately, the team took on C4. So that secures still, apparently, to Rybka, that black was doing very well here. So Kasparov was already in for a major fight in this position after winning this exchange sack, after this novelty. So I'm just trying to find my way through the wiki notes now. So after Queen takes C4, what would we say is happening here? Basically, Irina Krush is credited for energizing the world team. The black queen had fought Kasparov's central pawns, and Queen B3 on the earlier move, on an earlier move, 11. If we go back to move 11 before carrying on from this position. If Queen B3 on move 11 instead of Knight D5, so if Kasparov didn't want to go for the exchange sack, I mean he was virtually forced, I think, for Knight D5 and Knight C7. Castles, Queen B7, Rook FC8, and the world team would have won back a central pawn. There's a nice fork of these two central pawns with a lot of counterplay here. Wiki says a favourable game. So anyway, that's why Kasparov he'd gone to this committal path of playing this to win the exchange sack. So black has a lot of pawns here, but white wants to damage one of black's pawns. So he plays actually the move Knight B6. So he doubles the pawns. Now plays Knight C3. Still, black's got a great game, and the world team played Rook A8. Which is not coming up from Rybka, but maybe B5 is good. Rybka says Knight E4, but this is on a shallow depth. Maybe Rook A8 is a really good move. Although now, apparently, theoretically, according to Rybka, white's better after Bishop E3 for some reason. So obviously, people didn't have strong engines at the time, and it would have actually ruined the match, I suppose, if there was like reams and reams of Rybka analysis. There wouldn't have been much human discussion. I don't think Kasparov would have played under those conditions anyway. So it was just before the pre-computer era with these really strong engines turning up that maybe that was part of the charm of this match. That move like Rook A8 was played, but actually now on depth 13, Rybka's starting to like white again, even after Bishop E3, because B5 can still be played. So move after move Rook A8, Kasparov played a move to try and reduce black's counterplay. Doesn't want really black to play Rook A5 and maybe get the Rook out. So what he did was actually secure the use of B5 to try and paralyse these pawns. He played the move A4, and now if Rook A5, then Knight B5. But apparently Rybka doesn't mind black here with Knight E4. So maybe, I don't know the idea here, say Rook E1, Bishop E5. It might be okay, it might be a slight advantage to white. I haven't got enough engine resource here to work out at any depth what's going on. So let's stick with the path. So after A4 was played, Knight E4 was immediately played. Knight takes, Queen takes, So what is the situation here? Well, Kasparov maybe was a bit uncomfortable, but he did play what Rybka is recommending here, to fork these two pawns. He did play Queen B3. So how does Black defend these pawns? Well, Black actually played the move F5, so offering B6, which is a double pawn complex anyway. So offering for Queen takes B6, but Kasparov didn't go for that. Let's have a quick look. Queen takes B6, Knight D4, protects B7, and now, you know, say King H1, Rook A6. Black looks okay according to Rybka. You know, the pieces are very, very good. Even the rook can come out to maybe B6.